Everyone. My name is Emmanuel, and I'm a cloud engineer here at Cecure Intelligence Limited. So today we are going to be talking about how to transform your cloud operations, right? And in particular, we are going to be looking at effective monitoring and alerting strategies. So on the screen, we have the agenda of our presentation, the agenda of what we're going to be doing today, right? So we are going to start with what cloud monitoring is, right? So we're going to understand the concept of cloud monitoring. After that, we're going to look at the tools that help us to monitor our services or resources on the AWS cloud. We're also going to take a look at proactive monitoring approaches, how to go about this in the best possible way. And we are looking at how to we are looking at the metrics to monitor, right? When we decide to, engage in proactive monitoring, we're also going to look at best practices, and we have a brief demo, and then we conclude. All right. So, what is cloud monitoring? So, it has to do with observing the health, performance, and security of cloud resources, right? So, it's not just enough to deploy your resources on the cloud. It's not just enough to have your resources or your workloads hosted on the cloud. You also have to evaluate, you also have to look at how they are doing, right? This is done in order to ensure that you are getting the most value from the cloud, right? So it's the same as having a child in school, right? It's not, as a responsible parent or guardian, you don't want to just enroll your child in the school and then you don't even make any effort to monitor the progress of that child, to know whether that person is going to classes, doing his or her homework, projects, and all of that. So you want to do that as a responsible guardian, right? So the same thing for us as responsible cloud professionals. We want to ensure that when we deploy stuff on the cloud, we monitor them. And it helps to ensure operational efficiency and reliability. So why does it matter? Why should we monitor resources? Why should we monitor cloud resources and workloads on the cloud? So it's important because, one, it helps you to identify issues before they impact your users, right? You want to be able to know if something is going to go wrong before your users or before your customers, right? Because if they are to find out a problem before you do, right, it's going to reduce their level of trust and confidence in your business. So you want to make sure that you are doing everything you can to ensure that the workloads you have running on the cloud are running as they should, effectively and competently. Secondly, it helps to reduce downtime, improve performance, and optimize cost. So with proper monitoring in place, you can be able to know if something is going bad in your account, and then you can remediate for that very quickly. And in so doing, you help to reduce downtime. It helps to reduce downtime, right? So without that monitoring strategy you put in place, that's the disaster would have happened, and then it would have affected your business adversely. But with proper monitoring, you're able to see this before it happens, and then you remediate that. Next slide. All right. So we're going to be looking at some of AWS monitoring tools that we can use to do monitoring, right? So going forward, many of the thoughts I'm going to be sharing with you, they apply to other cloud service providers, right? But just to make our discourse easy, we are just limiting it to the AWS cloud, but really the strategies and all of that, they really apply to other cloud service providers like Azure, GCP, and the rest. All right, so the first service, these services are native to AWS, right? They are AWS services. So the first service we have is AWS CloudWatch. So CloudWatch is like the premier service that is used for monitoring on AWS, right? It's a central tool for monitoring AWS resources and applications, right? With CloudWatch, you have the ability to collect and track metrics, logs, and events, right? So it's particularly useful for so many use cases. So if you have Lambda functions and, for example, you run your code on them and they are failing, you can get insights as to what made the code to fail, from CloudWatch. You can use CloudWatch to perform automation. You can use CloudWatch to set up alarms to ensure that everything is working as it should in your account. The use case of CloudWatch is really, really much, right? So it's a service that is used by many firms, by many organizations, even here at Secure Intelligence, right? So second, we have AWS CloudTrail. So CloudTrail is used to track user activity and API usage. So many of the services or many of the things you do in an AWS environment is being recorded, right? And the service responsible for that is CloudTrail. So CloudTrail records events that happens, not all, but many of them. So for example, when the user logs in, it's going to record that. If you delete something, it's going to record that. And it's important, you can use it to perform some sort of automation. For example, you want to know when somebody uses the root credentials to log in, right? So with CloudTrail, you can have an integration whereby if that happens, you want to be notified, and then you can make an informed decision from there. Or if somebody tries or attempts to delete a production database or a production server, you can integrate CloudTrail with maybe SNS to ensure that you are notified of this, and then you can make decisions based on that. Finally, for this presentation, we are looking at X-Ray, AWS X-Ray. It's a service that helps to provide end-to-end tracing for analyzing and debugging applications, right? It helps us to understand application performance bottlenecks. Next slide. All right, so we're going to look at proactive monitoring approaches, right? So the first is set up alarms and alerts, right? So if you want to monitor for your resources, a basic requirement is to set up alarms and alerts. So on AWS, the service that can help us to do this is CloudWatch Alarms, and you can use it to monitor predefined thresholds for critical metrics, and then you integrate this with SNS for notification. So this is what we are going to be doing during the demo. Right. So for example, you have an EC2 instance, right? And that's where your workload is hosted in, right? So you want to know when the server is getting overloaded, right? You want to know when the server is getting overutilized so that you can make decisions from that. Maybe you want to increase the size of the instance from a smaller instance to a bigger one, or you want to launch another instance if that should happen, right? So that one server is not just performing the whole work, but now you have two servers that are responding to the request from customers or clients. So for example, you can say if the CPU utilization goes over 70% or 80%, I want you to notify me, right? And from there, you can now make a decision, right? So the second is that we can also automate response, right? Or automate responses, right? So you can leverage Lambda for automated corrective actions. So on AWS, we have a service known as config. So config helps us to perform compliance. It does not prevent issues from happening. It just shows us that, okay, something like this has actually happened, and then you correct that. So you can correct it manually, or you can use automation to correct it. So for example, you can have maybe in your security groups, you don't want a rule, an SSH port, that's port 22 now, to be open to the entire world, that's 0.0.0.0/0, the IP for everybody. You don't want that for security reasons, right? So if that should happen, if an engineer or whoever using your AWS account should do that, config is going to inform you, is going to flag that as being non-compliant, right? And then you can actually go and delete that rule on the security group, or you can attach that config rule to a Lambda function, so that if that should happen, the Lambda function goes to delete it. So in this particular use case, you have automated what you would have done, right? And you can also use it for auto restart instances or to scale services when needed, right? So finally, for this presentation, we want to monitor logs and events. So you can use CloudWatch logs to collect application and system logs. You can also set up CloudWatch events to trigger actions based on system changes. So CloudWatch events, aka also known as Event Bridge. So you can use it. So what it does is it helps you to react to certain changes in your account. So if A happens, I want you to do this, right? You find it in the use case will be for pipelines, right, on AWS. So if there's a push to this particular code repository on code commit, I want you to trigger the pipeline. I want to trigger this pipeline. So that's a use case. All right, next slide. All right, so now we're going to look at key metrics to monitor. So I have to state that the metrics you want to monitor on your AWS account or environment is dependent on the resources you are using, right? So if you're using resource A, what you monitor for might be different, can be different if you're using resource B, right? So if you have an EC2 instance, which is a popular service on AWS, you want to monitor for things like CPU utilization, what you're seeing on the screen, memory usage, network traffic, disk I/O, and storage, right? But if you have a different service, right, for example, Beanstalk or EKS, what you monitor for is different, right? So I just use this because these are like the basic ones, but really it's just to give you an idea of what you should monitor for. And it's not every metric you monitor for, right? You just monitor for the ones that are important to you and your business. So the first is CPU utilization. Just to spend a bit of time on this. So it shows you if there's high usage on that instance, which can perform and which can signal and performance bottlenecks or resource constraints, right? So you have an instance and then the CPU is like say 70 or 80% utilized, then you know that the instance is getting overwhelmed. But if the CPU utilization is about 20%, you know that, the CPU for the most part is just, that server for the most part is doing nothing, right? So in such cases, you want to maybe reduce the size of the server, but if it's the reverse, whereby you have a high CPU utilization, you want to increase the server or launch like a different server. So you also have memory usage, network traffic, disk I/O, right? So network traffic to like identify anomalies in spikes or drops in traffic, right? So it monitors the request that is coming from your users to your server and the response that your server is giving out also, and disk I/O storage. It monitors. This one monitors the volume, right, that is attached to your EC2. That's the storage that is attached to your server, right? So at this point, I want to state that if you're here, you're a business owner, an IT executive, a tech expert, CEO, CTO, and you want to incorporate monitoring, effective monitoring into your AWS account or Azure account or whatever cloud you're using, at Secure Intelligence, we help you to set that up alongside a whole lot of other things, for example, automation, patch management, security, and so on and so forth. So you are in the right place, right? And all you have to do is to book a call with us. The sales representatives, they will send a link to the in-call chat where you can book a call with us, and then we'll take it off from there. Next slide. All right, so now we're going to look at best practices for proactive monitoring, right? So what are the best practices you can incorporate into your account to ensure that you are properly and effectively monitoring your critical resources? So the first is that you want to set up health checks, right? So what does health checks do? Um, let me paint a scenario or situation of what is possible without a health check. So say for example, you have two servers that are used to run your workload, right? And one of the server is bad. When a request comes in from the users, it will come to the bad server and the good server, right? Because um, there's no mechanism to know if that server, if any of the server is good or bad, right? So in this case, the users are going to be frustrated because some of them, they are going to be routed to the bad instance, to the bad server, and they're not going to be getting any response, maybe a 404, 544, whatever, 400 or 500 error, right? And in this case, you might not even know until they start complaining about it, and then you go and look at what's wrong and then you correct it. So some users are going to be getting the right response. Some users are going to be getting an error page, right? But then if you have a health check, what happens now is that when that kind of thing is, when that kind of stuff happens, when a server is bad, users are not going to be routed to that bad server anymore. All the requests will now be targeted towards that good instance or that good server. In that case, everybody's happy, right? Your customers do not even know what's happened, right? And then you see what you see that a server is failing, and then you can go and correct. And once you've corrected for that, automatically traffic from the users are going to be coming to the formerly bad instance. So it's something that you want to check out for. Secondly, you have enable detailed monitoring. So if you have workloads on EC2 instances, right? So by default, metrics from EC2 instance are being sent to CloudWatch every 5 minutes. But with detailed monitoring, you get those metrics are sent to CloudWatch every 1 minute, right? So this helps you to react faster. So something that would have taken you 5 minutes to know, it now takes you a minute to know. So you're able to react faster to events, whether good or bad, right? Just that you get to pay, you may incur additional charges for this, right? So something you need to take note of. Then thirdly, you can use multi-region monitoring such that if you have workloads in different regions on AWS or Azure or GCP, right, you can monitor for those resources in the different regions in order to ensure high availability and redundancy across regions. I have to state that it's good for you to monitor resources that are critical. It's not every resource you monitor. Not all resources have the same level of importance, right? So, for example, you want to monitor for production databases, production servers, right? Critical resources that are important to your business. And finally, for this presentation, you can also leverage artificial intelligence and machine learning for anomaly detection, right? So, for example, on AWS, a service known as Compute Optimizer, what this does is it tells you, for example, you have an EC2 instance, because many people do not know the instance type to use or the instance size to use for their workloads, right? So what Compute Optimizer does is that when you have your workload on an EC2 instance, it's going to scan that instance, going to scan everything in the workload, and then it's going to recommend for you the best instance type to use in such a way that you are not overpaying or underpaying, as in you are not using an instance that is small that gets to frustrate your customers. You're not using an instance that is oversized so that you are paying more than necessary. So at this point, I'm going to share my screen now as we go to the demo section. So what we want to do, like I said, we want to have an instance, right? We want to create an instance, and we want to have an integration that if the CPU utilization of that instance goes over 70%, we want to be notified, right? We want to see that via email, right? We want to see that, and we make an informed decision based on that. So that's what we want to do. So the first is to launch the instance. So I'm going to call this monitor. Right. I'm not going to proceed with the keeper. It's fine. So while that is coming up, I'm going to open SSM. So I'm going to connect to the system via SSM and Fleet Manager. Right. While that is opening up, I'm going to go to CloudWatch. So what I want to do now is to create an alarm. Let me just filter by the instances that are running. So we see what I created. Yeah, so this is our instance, right? And if you check under monitoring, we have the CPU utilization here. And we see that, there's nothing here because it's an instance. We don't have anything major in it. So the CPU utilization is going to be low. It's not used for anything. But I'm going to install something on the server. It's called stress, and it does what the name says. It is going to stress the server, and the CPU utilization is going to skyrocket to 100%. So what I'm doing that is to actually show you that it's actually for the demo, right? You want to stress your server to the point that you get alerted if the CPU utilization goes over 70%. So that's the point. All right, so this is CloudWatch now, the service I spoke of during the presentation, earlier in the presentation, that helps you to do monitoring and a whole lot of stuff. So you can come here, you see log groups. This is not what I want to do. I just want to show you around, right? So you get log groups for different services, and you can use it to make informed decisions, right? So this is for Glue, the Glue service, Amplify, API Gateway, CloudTrail, Code Build, so many services, right? You can monitor for different stuffs. I'm going to go to alarms, all alarms, and we are going to create an alarm. So it's asking, what do you want to monitor for, right? And that is what metric, what do you want to monitor for? And that's what we want to do now. We're going to select a metric, but I'm going to come here and copy the ID of the instance that we just created, and I'm going to filter by that. All right, so we see the metrics we have. So there are different metrics that you get if you launch an instance, but the one we are interested in is the CPU utilization, right? So we are going to select that, right? So we are selecting CPU utilization. We have other metrics, EBS, networking and out, and other stuffs, but we are interested in CPU utilization, so we are going to select that metric, and I'm just going to change this to 1 minute, right? So the condition is that whenever the CPU utilization is greater than, I'm going to say 70%, right? I want this alarm to be triggered. So that's what this is saying. Whenever this is greater than 70%, I want it to be triggered. You have other conditions like greater than or equal to, lower than or equal to, or lower than, right? So you can customize it based on your own use case. So when it's in alarm, when it is greater than 70%, I want you to notify me, right? So when it's in alarm, you can actually get notified via SNS. So SNS stands for Simple Notification Service. So basically, you are going to get notified via email, right? of course, we can skip this, but then it's something that's fun to see. So I'm going to create new topic. And I'm going to call this stress. And the email would be my email. .com, right? Create. So I am now going to go next. Alarm name, I'm going to call it stress alarm. Next, I'm going to create the alarm. So we have created the alarm. The state is insufficient data, but we have by the side, we have this warning icon or warning stuff here. And it says that this action sends a message on SQS topic, it will not work as expected until the endpoint is confirmed. So basically what it's saying is that you have provided an email for me to send an alert to, right, when this alarm is triggered, but then we have not confirmed that email. We have not confirmed that email is actually yours. So if you come here too, you see that it is pending confirmation. So I have to come to my email, and then you see it here. So I'm going to confirm this. So now I'm confirmed. Once I refresh here and here, so you see it's confirmed now. The status is confirmed. And you should see that warning sign has gone. All right, so that has gone. So now we have the alarm and alert side of things ready. So now what we want to do is that we want to stress the server so that the CPU utilization is going to skyrocket, and then this alarm is going to be triggered, and then we get notified via email. All right, so this is Systems Manager now, Fleet Manager under Systems Manager. I'm going to go to my instance, and I'm going to start the terminal session. All right, so I have a script here, not the scripts, like command actually. So what I'm installing is stress, and like I said, that's what it does. What the name says it does, right? So it's going to stress your system. It's going to increase it. So I'm going to install it now, and the installation is complete. And now I'm going to actually do the stressing. So this is where it's going to stress the system, and for a period of 900 seconds, that's 15 minutes. So now the system is being stressed. You see, I don't get the prompt back, so it shows you that is currently running. So I showed us earlier that this was there was nothing here, right? But now you see the CPU utilization is at 16%, a little above 60%. And as we refresh, we're going to see that it's going to increase. Let me open this in CloudWatch. Yeah. All right, so it's in CloudWatch now. All right, so I think it takes a minute to propagate the changes. Oh, I forgot something. I forgot to enable detailed monitoring, like I said. So you can find that under manage detailed monitoring. So I'm going to enable it. So every 1 minute now, metrics from the EC2 instances is going to be sent to CloudWatch. So that's what that does. by default is 5 minutes, but like I said, this helps you to react to changes faster. Just that you get to pay a little bit more. So that is going to take some time. So it's still 16%. And this is still running. So let's just give it a minute or two. And when you create the alarm, it's in the state, okay, so everything is working fine. That was when the CPU utilization was a little above 0. We had not started stressing it then. All right, so it's still in okay. Okay. All right. So while that is happening, I just want to speak a bit about systems manager, right? Not part of our topic, but then additional knowledge. So you can access, you would have an alternative to this would be to have port 22 open on, port 22 is open on this current EC2 instance, but if you don't want to manage key pairs, if you don't want to have to manage key pairs, you can just use SSM, right? And then you'll be able to use SSM to access your servers. Just that you have to, the instance or the server, the AMI you are using have to, it needs to have the SSM agent installed in it. If not, it's not going to work. If you are using some other type of AMI, for example, CentOS, we would not have been able to access it via SSM. We would have to install the SSM agent first before before we actually come here, right? Before we come to the, what's it called now? So this systems manager, and then we see it. So we see that the current CPU utilization is about 50-something%. So what we did is actually working. All right. So it's yet to get to 70%. And just give it some time. Let me custom. So it's above 50% here. This is the data point. And the stress is still like the stress command is still running. Right. So in a short while now, we should have, okay, all right. So this is in alarm now. So the threshold we specified has been reached. That 70% has been reached. And so the implication is that we have that this goes into alarm. And you see, you have that notification or the sign here saying that this is in alarm. And we should have an email, yeah. So we get an email from SNS saying that, okay, I'm receiving this email because CloudWatch, this is the name of the alarm, stress alarm, in US is 1, and this has crossed, the threshold has been crossed, right? So that's what that is saying here, right? It was greater than 70%, just like what we, exactly what we specified when we're creating the alarm, right? So integrations like this are really important because if this is a production server, let me just close this. If this is a production server, you want to be notified. Let me do 15 minutes. So it has gone above, just that the screen is small. All right. So if this is a production server, where is the instance? I closed it. So if this is a production server, you want to be able to like react almost immediately if something goes wrong, right? So this is what alerts, alarm, automation can help us to do on AWS, right? So that's basically what we wanted to demo today, how you can use SNS, CloudWatch alerts, CloudWatch alarms to stress your, to automate stuff in order to get notified if anything happens. So now that I get notified via email, I can go and quickly, change the instance size. So I can come here and change the instance size to something bigger, since of course, for this to work, for the changing of the instance type to work, I have to stop the instance first. So if you look at it, it's not going to work, right? Because we have to stop the instance first. I just want to show us quickly instance settings, change instance type. This action is available when the instance is stopped, but that's In conclusion, right, proactive monitoring allows us to detect and resolve issues early, right? Like what we saw in the demo, we were able to react to our instance getting overwhelmed before it's affected or impacted our users, right? You don't want to get complaints from your customers first before you know that something's actually bad, right? And AWS provides a comprehensive suite of tools, CloudWatch, CloudTrail, Trusted Advisor for seamless monitoring, right? So you can leverage these services to ensure that you are properly monitoring your resources, right? And nothing takes you by surprise, right? And you can even integrate budgets and all of that to ensure that if you are spending above a particular threshold, you are notified. So in such way, you are not paying more than you have actually budgeted, right? And automation alerts helps to reduce manual intervention and enhance system security and reliability. So with automation, we get notified without doing anything, basically. Just imagine we had so many servers and we did not have this automation set up. We would have to go and check the servers one by one to ensure that their metrics are fine, everything is working fine with them. The time that we would have spent to do all of that is saved, right? And finally, monitoring helps in optimizing performance, cost, security, and ensuring business continuity. Thank you so much for your time. And if you have any question, I would be happy to take that.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel, for that very interesting presentation. And the demo, it was very, very practical. I'm sure we've all learned a thing or two about monitoring and alerting strategies. All right. So before we move even further, we'll be taking questions. So for those of you who have already dropped your questions, more questions can also come in. So without wasting any much time, let's quickly jump into the questions. All right, so Emmanuel, we have a couple of questions for you from the comment section. I don't know if you'll be able to take these questions. So firstly, what strategies can we implement to minimize downtime when critical alerts are triggered? All right, do you need me to go over the question again, or do you get it?
Please take it again.
Let me take the question again. It says, what strategies can we implement to minimize downtime when critical alerts are triggered?
Right. Great question. So, like we saw in the demo, critical alerts was triggered. We are assuming that was our production server. So, what I showed during the demo was when I was the alarm was triggered. I got an email, and I wanted to go and manually increase the size of the instance. But what you want to do in real life, in a real life scenario, is that you want to automate this, right? You can have automated scaling, right? So you can implement auto scaling to handle sudden increases in traffic or load, right? To ensure that your system can automatically adapt and scale resources when usage spikes happen, right? So you don't have to worry if you have something like auto scaling in place and that happens. What would happen would be that the auto scaling is going to notice that, and then it is going to create a new instance, so that the load that was being carried by one instance now is carried by two instances now, right? So that's something you can set up, right? And also you can make use of load balancers, right? So you can use load balancers. So what a load balancer does is to distribute traffic to different instances. So in such case you have high availability, right? So traffic can get rerouted to healthier instances, like healthy instances, like I said. You also have different stuffs, different strategies, like what's it called now, blue green, right? So once you come to the CI/CD part of things, continuous integration and continuous deployment, you can use blue green to ensure that if a green server is overwhelmed, you can deploy what is called, sorry, if a blue server is overwhelmed, which is the former one, a green one will take its place. But auto scaling should work. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for that answer, Emmanuel. I'll just based on time, I'll just take one more question. All right, and the question is, how do we effectively integrate third-party monitoring services with native cloud monitoring tools like AWS CloudWatch or Azure Monitor?
All right, so integrating third-party tools is something that is possible on AWS, right? So, for example, you can integrate AWS with third-party tools like Datadog, Prometheus, and Grafana, right? So, if you want to do this, right, the first thing will be to identify the key metrics you want to monitor. So, determine which metrics you need to track across both the native AWS service and third-party tools, right? And after you do that, you integrate them, right? You define what you aim to achieve with the integration. For example, you want to have centralized login or enhanced alerting or performance insights or better visualization, right? So it's actually possible to integrate third-party tools with AWS, Datadog, and the rest, right? You just have to identify what you want to monitor and then you integrate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel, for another well thoughtful answer. All right, so with that, I think we've come to the end of the Q&A section. All right, so I just want to say thank you so much again, Emmanuel, for joining us today and for giving us this insightful presentation and session. All right, so I'm sure a lot of us here are excited to start exploring effective monitoring and alerting strategies in our cloud environment. And if you are also one of that person, then we have something for you. All right, but before we do that, if we can just show some sort of reactions just to show our encouragement to Emmanuel, to thank him for his time and for the insightful knowledge that he has shared with us. All right, so moving on now, if you are looking to build using a cloud solution, or to build on a cloud solution, or build a cloud solution basically, or you want to migrate your workloads to a cloud infrastructure or a cloud solution like AWS or Microsoft Azure, then you are definitely at the right place, because we at Cecure Intelligence Limited, we are go-to partners. We provide you with the right tools, the right services to meet your cloud needs, either AWS, Microsoft Azure or Google Cloud. All right. So if you're also new to the cloud, you're also new to tech, you're not left out. With our CIL Academy, which is another arm of Cecure Intelligence Limited, you can learn and develop skills, tech skills, even cloud-based skills, and become a certified cloud practitioner yourself. All right, so we have a range of services in our CIL Academy, from Zero to Techie program to our AWS skill builder and AWS instructor-led training. All right, so if you want to find out more about our CIL Academy offerings, click on the link in the Q&A sections to schedule a call with me and my team of experts. All right, so secondly, for those of you who are also preparing for your tech certification exams, including your certified cloud practitioner or other advanced tech certifications, we'd like to introduce you to Wiz Labs. We've done a few webinars on Wiz Labs. You can always refer to our YouTube channel so you can rewatch all of these webinars. All right, so it's the leading exam readiness solution, provides you with comprehensive study materials, practice questions, and hands-on lab and sandboxes, so you can also get your hands on practical environments, just like Emmanuel did with the demo. You too can also experience that as well on Wiz Labs. All right, so and if you want to find out more about it, please do well to click on the link to book a call with me, schedule a call with me, and then give you more insight and more information about that. So we also wanted to be on the lookout for our email. Like I mentioned, you'll be getting an email with a web replay link, so you can watch every part of this webinar that you may have missed. All right, we'll also be putting this link to book a call with us. You will put it in our in the comment section or the caption of the YouTube replay as well. All right, so we want you to look out for those emails, and you can also visit our website at Cecure Intelligence Limited, secureintel.com. All right, and you can also do well to connect with us on all our social media platforms.